Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebeling. It's January 1st. Today we celebrate the Chelsea Physic Garden curator who was partly responsible for the British fern craze, and the botanical illustrator whose art ended up on South African currency. We'll learn about the man who discovered the virus, researching tobacco plants, and the English architect who partnered with Gertrude Jekyll to design country estates. Today's Unearthed Words feature garden-inspired poetry from the English gardener and writer Thomas Moore. And we grow that garden library with a book that will make you feel like you've made a garden friend. I'll talk about a great garden item that is made from repurposed weapons. And then we'll wrap things up with the origin story of the Kent mango. But first, let's catch up on a few recent events. Mother Earth Living shared the herbs of Christmas, and I thought it was interesting because they talked about the mistletoe. Mistletoe is a gesture of conciliation, which usually means a kiss. But the article points out that under the original rules, a berry must be picked from the mistletoe for each kiss. And then after all the berries are removed, the sprig was taken down and replaced with a new one. So there you go. If you haven't used up all your berries, you better get to work. Then The Guardian shared a great post about all of the new plant discoveries that were made in 2019. Kew scientists officially named 102 plants and 8 new kinds of fungus in 2019, including a shrub that oozes superglue and cancer-fighting fungus. A new species of snowdrop was actually spotted on Facebook, and it led to a new official discovery. Now, if you'd like to check out these curated articles for yourself, you're in luck, because I share all of it with the listener community in the free Facebook group, the Daily Gardener Community. So there's no need to take notes or search for links. The next time you're on Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community and request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today is the anniversary of the death of the gardener, naturalist, and Chelsea Physic Garden curator Thomas Moore. Before Moore worked at the Chelsea Physic Garden, he spent 4 years at Fraser's Lee Bridge Nurseries from 1839 to 1842. Moore wrote several books on horticulture. Many reflect his lifelong passion for ferns. In 1848, the year he started at the Chelsea Physic Garden, he wrote The Handbook of British Ferns. His maniacal focus on ferns led to the creation of a fernery in the Chelsea Physic Garden, and it inspired the Victorian fern craze, or pterodomania. 12 years after his first book on ferns, his love for ferns was still going strong, and he wrote British Ferns and Their Allies in 1869. Thomas is remembered for these wonderful quips like, "The soul cannot thrive in the absence of a garden," or "Garden as though you will live forever." My favorite Thomas Moore quote is about rosemary. He wrote, "As for rosemary, I let it run all over my garden walls, because it is the herb sacred to remembrance and to friendship." Today is the birthday of the South African botanical artist Cythna Letty. Letty's mom was a painter, and she gave Cythna her first lessons on painting and sketching. As a small girl, she began creating a book that illustrated all of the flowering plants of her homeland. It took her a lifetime to finish the work, and it was finally published in 1962. Letty captured the wildflowers of Africa with detail and grace. She worked for the Botanical Institute in the Department of Agriculture in South Africa, based in Pretoria. In the 1960s, as South Africa moved from the English sterling system, Cythna's work was selected for 3 coins in South African currency. The 10-cent coin featured the aloe. The 20-cent coin featured the protea, which was the national flower of South Africa. And the 50-cent flower featured the agapanthus. Cythna wrote poetry as well. She once wrote, "I hitched my wagon to a daisy, direction vague and destination hazy. But could any star have guided me more exactly to where I most dearly love to be?" Today is the anniversary of the death of the botanist Martinus Beijerinck, who died on this day in 1931. Beijerinck searched for the reason tobacco plants were dying. In his research, Beijerinck ground up some diseased tobacco leaves and then pressed the juices through a bacteria filter. He was utterly shocked when the filtered bacteria-free liquid still spread the disease. After reviewing his experiment, Beijerinck concluded that a contagious living fluid was the culprit. It was a disease-carrying microorganism that was smaller than bacteria, and he called it a virus, the Latin word for poison. Today, 2 of the most common viruses are the flu and the common cold. And today is the birthday of the English architect, Sir Edwin Lutyens. Edwin always went by Ned. When Ned was almost 40, he was hired to work on a house for the great garden designer and horticulturist Gertrude Jekyll. It was the beginning of a professional collaboration and friendship that had profound effects on the English country garden. Jekyll and Ned created some of the greatest Edwardian gardens in the world. Lutyens reflected on the work of a garden designer when he wrote, "No artist has so wide a palette as the garden designer, and no artist in greater need of discretion and reserve." When Jekyll introduced Ned to the founder of Country Life magazine, Edward Hudson, she created another invaluable source of synergy for Ned's work. Hudson greatly admired Ned's work, and he became a vital patron. He regularly shared Ned's work in his magazine. He commissioned Ned to design numerous jobs for his many homes, and he even had Ned design the new office space for the magazine. The home Lutyens designed for Hudson, known as Deanery Garden, is arguably his best country home. It's now owned by Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page. In unearthed words, after researching the Chelsea Physic Garden curator Thomas Moore for today's show, I thought you'd enjoy a few of his delightful poems. In 1805, Moore was inspired by a rose specimen called Old Blush, and he wrote a poem called The Last Rose of Summer. "'Tis the last rose of summer, left blooming alone. All of her lovely companions are faded and gone." And Moore wrote this verse about the tuberose, also known as a night violet or dame's violet. "The tuberose with her silvery light that in the gardens of Malay is called the mistress of the night. So like a bride, scented and bright, she comes out when the sun's away. And here's a lovely verse from Moore about jasmine. From plants that wake when others sleep, from timid jasmine buds that keep their odor to themselves all day, but when the sunlight dies away, let the delicious secret out to every breeze that roams about. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Potted and Pruned by Carol Michael. The subtitle to Carol's book is Living a Garden Life, and it came out in February of 2017. Potted and Pruned won the 2018 Garden Media Awards Gold Medal for Best Overall Book. As someone who has a large garden library, one of the things I love about Carol's delightful little book is the cover. It's a verdant green. Is there any other color more suited to a garden book? I think not. Yet you wouldn't believe how few garden books are actually green nowadays. Beautiful green books like Carol's are wonderful to have out during the winter, but also all year long. Carol's book is really just the perfect book to have by the bed in a guest room or at the cabin or just on an end table because it's short and sweet, only 144 pages, and best of all, it's heartwarming. To read Carol's book is to feel like you've made a garden friend. Carol's the kind of gardener that can laugh at her own garden mistakes, and she makes you feel like making mistakes is as natural as the garden itself. After all, how else are we to learn? In her book, Carol has written 36 wonderful stories for gardeners. You'll feel like you're right beside her in her garden called May Dreams, where some of her plants prove frustrating, where the weeds want her full-time attention, and where new plants are always welcome. You'll find inspiration as you read about how Carol handles drought or her practical pieces of advice that are sprinkled throughout the book. Carol's book reminded me of the book Gardener's Bedtime Stories, only shorter, sweeter, and more relatable. You can dip in and out of Carol's stories and then drift off to dreamland, where you'll hopefully dream of your own garden, your happy place. And here's a very unique gift for gardeners. It's the Garden Mattock from Raw Tools. Raw Tools makes garden tools from guns in the spirit of beating swords into plowshares. I heard about this company over the holidays, and their Garden Mattock is such a great tool. The Mattock is a double-sided tool that meets a variety of needs when you're caring for your garden. It offers a hoe on one side and a fork on the other. The tool is made from about 5 inches of a rifle barrel, and every barrel gives a different tool. Each one is one of a kind, and they're made by hand. The handle is 14 to 18 inches, and the hoe and the fork are 6 to 8 inches. Anyway, you can check out the amazing work that's being done by Raw Tools to repurpose weapons over at rawtools.org. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1933, the Kent mango was planted on land belonging to Leith Dunlop Kent in Coconut Grove, Florida. Kent was just a kid when he was given a little Brooks mango seedling for Christmas. 6 years later, Kent's tree produced its first crop of mangoes. The tree was prolific and a consistent producer. Kent brought some of the mangoes to the Florida Mango Forum, and the Kent mango became a vital part of the commercial mango industry in Florida. By 1950, Kent was elected president of the Florida Mango Forum. And here's a final caution for gardeners when it comes to growing mangoes. People can have a sensitivity to the peel and the milky sap of the plant. It turns out that the substance, urushiol, is found in poison ivy, sumac, and poison oak. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.